Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you my book collection. Starting off with this, it's actually a desk that has two little shelves at the top. The top shelf is my classics shelf. I gathered most of these during my 4 years of university. If you didn't know, I studied English literature for my BA, so I spent 4 years reading classic books. I'm not gonna go through details. Obviously, I will show you all of the books like up close, but I do not want to talk about every single one. I'm just going to be talking about some of my favorites, some of the books that I'm very excited to read and I still haven't been able to, and stuff like that, you know? Starting off with one of the first classic novels I read, and it is called The Stranger by Albert Camus. This is a very short novella, and I don't know if we can consider it a classic. I definitely do. It's about absurdism and the fact that life has no meaning and there is nothing in the future that you should be excited about. Very depressing book, but it was a great introduction for me to the world of classic and the way that these books have been written. English is not my native language, is not my mother tongue, so reading classics was definitely a big challenge for me. Like, it was difficult for me to get into. If you are a non-native speaker and you want to explore some classic books, I would highly recommend this one. I want to talk about one of my favorite classics of all time, and it is called The Picture of Dorian Gray. You can see all the tabs that I have. I was just like so speechless. I have written notes in this. Oh my god, I totally forgot about that. Like, I have underlined, highlighted, and then I have also written some things in this. Oh my god, I would love to reread this. It would be so fun to reread it. I buddy read this with two of my friends. Overall, it's an amazing book. The writing style is perfection. I have underlined so many quotes in this book, like beautiful writing. I'm gonna show you one of my favorite covers ever, like one of my favorite editions of one of these classic books. It's Alice in Wonderland. This edition is my favorite. I love it so much, and it has little illustrations in it. I just wanted to show you guys this. It's one of my favorite books that I own. Probably my favorite classic of all time is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I am obsessed with Emily Bronte. I love her works, I love her poems, and then this is her only novel out there. This is like a gothic romance novel, which is just my cup of tea, you know? I read it before university once, and then I had to reread it for university a couple of times. It just made me love it even more and more. I love Shakespeare plays, and my favorite is the well-known Hamlet. I again read this one for university for my drama class. That was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my entire life. Like, just like reading through this, analyzing every single sentence, and just like going like deep through every dialogue. There's also this one scene that me and my friends had to do a presentation for. It was during COVID-19 and we had to do it online. It was a new experience for us, but it turned out okay. I love me some Shakespeare and Hamlet. One book that I plan on reading this Christmas, yeah, I'm planning ahead, it's called Little Woman. I still have not read this. I have read some summarized versions of it before, but I've never actually read the full thing. This is on my Christmas TBR. It's a chunky book. It's not that this book is like Christmas themed, but like the beginning starts during Christmas time. I got this from a trip that I had to Turkey, I think 3 years ago. This is the MK World Classics edition. Another book that I want to talk about is called Frankenstein. On my first semester at university, I did a presentation on this. I had to read it for that. Thinking about it makes me really happy. Another gothic novel. I was obsessed with gothic novels during my university years, if you couldn't tell. Then we have my favorite Collins Classics editions. We have Washington Irving, Edgar Allan Poe, Shakespeare, Dante, and H.P. Lovecraft. I also have another one on my bedside table, which I'm currently reading. I think it's called The Grimm Fairy Tales. Oh my god, the next book, Classic Ghost Stories. It's a bunch of scary, gothic short stories. This is probably the most beautiful book I own. This used to belong to my aunt. When she immigrated, I asked if I could have this and she obviously said yes. There are 4 different topics. So we have From the Grave, Haunted, Cursed Creatures, and The Doomed and the Dead. In each collection we have some short stories and there are beautiful illustrations in it. They're all classics and they're all like horror, gothic. I haven't read all of them, but like every now and then I pick it up and I read one short story. I believe these are like really great for like bedtime stories. Moving on to the second shelf. This little part is dedicated to my literary fiction books. Most of them are my favorite books of all time. Normal People, My Policeman, Where the Crawdads Sing, Our Wives Under the Sea, Alone with You in the Ether, The Kite Runner, My Dark Vanessa, and Acts of Desperation. I have talked about most of these in my channel before, so I'm not gonna go into much detail. There are some books that I still haven't read. Yellowface, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, Diary of Blood. These 3 books are on my TBR. I have talked about these 2 before, I think, but I've never talked about Yellowface. It's by R.F. Kuang. I have never read an R.F. Kuang book before, so maybe I will do like a reading vlog, reading like R.F. Kuang books in a week, maybe. Another one of my 5-star reads that I do not talk enough about is called The Kite Runner. This book broke me into a million pieces, but I just adore it so freaking much. One of my favorite characters ever written in books is called Hassan from this book. Such a sweetheart little boy. Next up we have my Dark Academia shelf. This one is not Dark Academia, obviously. This book, I read it a very long time ago. Like, I don't even remember most of the things that happened in this book. I feel like I need to reread this first and then pick up the second book. I'm not in the mood for this, but like back then when I read this, probably like 7 years ago, I really enjoyed it and I loved it and I was obsessed with this cover. Still am, honestly. So iconic. This was like a Dark Academia urban fantasy. Right after that we have If We Were Villains. If you know me, you know that I am amazed by this book. 5 out of 5 stars. Perfect, amazing, brilliant.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique.
It's a Dark Academia about a murder, and they are drama students and they adore Shakespeare. If you are looking for a very sad and beautiful romance, this is the book for you. Next up we have Babel. This book was gifted to me by one of my dearest friends, Anita. She also even put a little note for me. Happy birthday from Anit. I am ashamed that I still have not read this, honestly. But as I said, it's R.F. Kuang. Maybe a reading vlog in the future. It's very floppy. It's a big boy. We will read it hopefully soon. As I have said before, this next book is not a Dark Academia book. It's a video game merch, I would like to say. It's for the game The Last of Us Part 2. So in The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie, the main character, she always has this little notebook in her backpack. She does like little doodles in it. Sometimes she writes poetry, just like little information or teeny tiny short diaries. We had access to this during the game, but when I saw this, I was like, I need to have that. Like the physical copy came with 2 cute little art prints from the game, and this is my favorite game of all time. I forgot to mention part 1 and part 2, both of them. Talking about the elephant in the room, the backward book. I did not mean to put it backwards, it just happened. The Secret History. Not my cup of tea. Very upsetting because when people talk about Dark Academia, this is the first book that they mention, and I had very high hopes for it, but I just unfortunately didn't enjoy it that much. I'm sorry to the people that love this book. It's not for me. Did not vibe with the characters, and the fact that it was very slow paced for me. During most of the book, nothing was happening. This one is The Dead Poet Society. Why was it in the back? because I didn't have space for it. I didn't know where to put it. That's why it was right there. And it's dark academia, so I just put it in the little dark academia shelf that I have. Dead Poet Society is one of my favorite movies ever. This is a little novel based on that movie. And I read it. It was fun. This was not so much different than the movie, so that's why I was like kind of, you know. Right after my dark academia shelf, we have my Harry Potter shelf, the author who must not be named. Obviously, I do not support the author of this series, but this series just means so much to me and it has such a special place in my heart. It reminds me of my childhood. I have this little shelf right here to dedicate that, but I do not want to talk too much about it. So moving on to my other bookshelf. And I forgot to mention that these are my board games, like right at the top of all of the shelves. My plants, this was a little gift from my friend. And then down here, these are some of the books that I have put on hold. Like I started them a very long time ago, but I never got around finishing them. This one was a reread actually. This is one of my favorite romance books of all time. But yeah, I wanted to reread it, but then the timing was not right and I just like put it right here so that whenever I'm in the mood, I can continue on with it. This is my little kitty calendar. Every day there's a little cat picture and a little cat quote, basically. And this is my Paddington. I love him. This was a gift from my aunt. Has a very special place in my heart. And then we have some candles. We have this little beautiful art print from the Pride and Prejudice. We have my little daisies here. This is my favorite flower. These are fake daisies, obviously. But then we have some more candles. So this is my other bookshelf. This was my first bookshelf ever that my dad got for me, and this was originally red, but my dad painted it black and white when I got my black and white bed frame. I wanted them to match, so my dad painted this, and then he strengthened these shelves. Bookshelf means so much to me and it reminds me of my dad. So starting off with the top shelf, I have my like thriller, horror, mystery novels. I have read most of them. The only one that I still haven't been able to read is called The Girl on the Train. My friend Cassie, she's gonna kill me. Every time I mention that I still haven't picked this book up, she comes at me. This is one of her like favorite books and she really enjoyed it, so every time I mention it, she gets angry that I still haven't read it. So I probably should read it soon for my own safety. I just need to take a moment to talk about The Haunting of Hill House. If you didn't know, you probably do, but like there's a TV series based on this book. Actually, it's very different from the book, but like the characters and the names and stuff, they're like somewhat similar. But I love the show so much. I adore this cover, which belongs to the show. And then I would also like to talk about Sadie. I feel like this one is not talked about enough. This was one of the first mystery thriller books that I ever read, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And I feel like if you are new to this genre, this is such a great choice. Right next to that is filled with contemporary YA books. This shelf reminds me of my teenagehood. When I was a teenager, I read most of these. I've put this one facing outwards because this is such a special book for me. It's called The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. You probably have heard of it, you know it. This book was the first English book that I ever read. So before this, I either read Persian books, like written in Farsi and Persian, or translated books, like English books that were translated into Persian, you know? But like this one was the first English novel that I ever read. I got it from a trip that I had to Turkey when I was 15 years old. So I read my first English novel when I was 15. I remember I didn't understand most of the book. I understood the plot line, but like the details, no. And I had to reread it a few times to completely comprehend the story. I have all of John Green books because I was obsessed with him. Like right after The Fault in Our Stars, I needed to read more by this author. We have Paper Towns, Looking for Alaska, Turtles All the Way Down, An Abundance of Catherines. My favorite out of all of his books that I own is called Looking for Alaska. I reread this a bajillion times. you can see the little tabs I have. This book was loved by 15-year-old me, okay? Next up, I want to talk about two books that I believe are perfect for non-native speakers if they want to start reading English books, and they are called Everything Everything and The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I went through a phase with these books. They were my whole personality. I loved the books, the movies, everything about them. I loved the writing, so oh my god, this one matches my shirt. If you are new to reading English books, highly recommend these two. I'm sure you have noticed this book and you have many questions. After We Collided by Anna Todd. We all had our Wattpad moments, okay? Every single one of us. Do not try to trick me into believing that you didn't. Wattpad was a place where you could read and write fan fictions. I was a huge One Direction fan. I still am, honestly. I am still waiting for their comeback. My favorite band member was Harry Styles, so naturally I read most of the fan fictions that were written about Harry Styles. There was actually a time in my life where I literally believed that I was going to marry Harry Styles one day. I plan on doing a video in the future reading my old favorite fan fictions and just like ruining them for myself because I know that if I read them now, I will probably hate them. Like, I'm just guessing that's gonna happen. But if you are interested in that, let me know down in the comments and we can read some of my favorites. And one of my favorites, Harry Styles fanfiction, it was not my number one, but I definitely enjoyed it when I was reading it, and it was called the After series. Even if you hadn't heard of the book series, you probably have watched the movies. They're not good, okay? I know that they're not good. Even the books back then, I knew that they were not that good. But the second book, somehow, it touched my heart, and I reread it a bajillion times, like on my phone. So at one point, I was like, let's just buy the physical copy so that I can keep it forever. I have cherished memories with this, but like, will I like it now? Probably not. I still have it because it reminds me of those times where I was a teenager, obsessed with Harry Styles and One Direction. This is the second book in the After series. I forgot to mention, but yeah. This is a thick one. I reread this so many times, and when I got the physical copy, I never read it again. I would also like to talk about Archer's Voice. This book was hyped on TikTok so freaking much that I just had to pick it up, and it was such a letdown for me. I'm sorry. The idea was great. I knew the synopsis like going into it because it was everywhere on TikTok, you know. I was having a good time. After probably like 20%, it just got boring. At one point, this book actually made me cry, so do not judge me for that. There was this one chapter that was really sad and it made me cry, but as I said, the rest of the book was not interesting enough for me. But I finished it and I think I gave it 2.5 stars. How could I not talk about this next book? The American Roommate Experiment. Elena Armas, I love you. We have The Spanish Love Deception and The American Roommate Experiment. These two are probably my favorite romance books of all time. Love the characters, love the dynamics, love the tropes. Perfection. I definitely do enjoy Spanish Love Deception a little bit more, but the love interest in this book, we are a little bit in love with him in this household. So moving on to the next shelf. This is my fantasy / sci-fi shelf. A Darker Shade of Magic. I started this series, but unfortunately I did not enjoy it that much. Like, I love the world building, I love the magic system and everything, but the characters and the plot was not quite gripping me. I really love the cover, and I'm glad I did not buy the whole series before reading it. So okay, so this big book, I got it with 2 of my friends, Negor and Melika. So if you're watching this, let's read it, okay? Every time I look at it, I feel bad. It's so big. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to read it alone, so I need to buddy read it with my friends, obviously. It's called Wolves of Summer. Perfect. Summer is ending. Come on, let's go. This is a romance fantasy. It's like a romantasy vibe. A lot of smut, if I'm not mistaken, is happening. But yeah, the next book I want to talk about, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This book is like a sci-fi literary fiction, if I'm not mistaken. It's about two friends that are building a video game together. And on the back it says, "This is the story of the perfect world Sadie and Sam build, the imperfect world they live in, and of everything that comes after success. Money, fame, duplicity, tragedy." Very excited about this, and I plan on doing a little reading / gaming vlog because I love playing video games. This book is about video games, so upcoming reading vlog in the future. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to my fantasy shelf. The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I love the Cruel Prince trilogy. I don't have all of the books, I only have the first book. The rest of them, I read their ebooks on my phone. This was one of the first fantasy series that I ever read. I absolutely enjoyed this series, especially the second book, but I still have not read The Stolen Heir. The Stolen Heir is a spin-off series to the Cruel Prince series. This follows one of the characters from the Cruel Prince, one of the side characters from the Cruel Prince, and it's about his love story. That's all I know about it. I don't know anything about the plot and what is happening in this book. I just know that there's a romance. Definitely need to pick this book up soon, and I would very much like to buddy read it with my friend Cassie, because me and Cassie reread the second and third book of the Cruel Prince series together. Why am I calling it the Cruel Prince series? It's called the Folk of the Air series. Next up, I have two very popular book talk fantasy, romantasy, I would like to say, books. Fourth Wing and The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I still haven't read these two. Do not attack me, please. I feel like I need to film a weekly reading vlog and just like read all the fantasy books that have been on my physical TBR for a very long time. These two were gifted to me by my friends Kaz and Sadaf. This is like a dragon romantasy. This is a vampire romantasy. Both of them are very interesting to me. I have read the synopsis before. They intrigue me, but I don't know why I still have not picked them up. Okay? Or you can attack me, by the way, in the comments. Maybe I will read them if you attack me, but be nice. I'm very ashamed right now. I haven't read these either. The Six of Crows, one of the OG booktube books, I would like to say. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. I read Six of Crows years ago. Still have not read the second book. I will read the second book, I promise. I just have been spoiled about something that is gonna happen in this book, and I just do not want to read that, you know? I'm not interested in reading that scene, but I don't know. Another one of my favorite fantasy series. I still haven't finished it, but I will probably like the last two books as well. It is called An Ember in the Ashes. Why is this book not talked about enough? Why is it so freaking underrated? Like, people need to read this more and talk about it more. I do not like this cover. I like the other covers. I will put the right here. Gorgeous. I read the first and the second books back to back. For some reason, I did not continue, and I don't know why. I gave both of these books 5 stars. The first book and the second book. Both of them were 5 stars. I don't know why I did not continue. I would also like to talk about Divergent. Another teenage phase. There was this era of dystopian books and movies. Divergent series, Hunger Games series, and the Maze Runner series. I loved all 3 of them, but like this one used to be my favorite. I used to have the whole series, but I don't anymore. I just kept the first one, and in this edition, because this was the edition that I read from, let me know which dystopian world was your favorite, because I believe that all of us had that little phase in our lives. There's this like really annoying sticker on this, which I hate, and I could never take it off, and I was scared that I was going to ruin it. I forgot to show you guys my little bookmark mug. This mug, my friend Kaz got it for me, so thank you, Kaz. I love it so freaking much. And these are my bookmarks, all of them. And then I have this little print from Lord of the Rings, and then I have my little Mockingjay I was so happy when I found this. And then I have some CDs back there, mostly Taylor Swift, one Nirvana, and one Ed Sheeran CD. Moving on to the next shelf, we have my Persian shelf. I have a little Ross Geller living inside of me, and I have this teeny tiny obsession with dinosaurs. So I have this book, The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs. This is such a beautiful book. I love it. I read this book with such passion and I felt very happy when I was reading it. So after that, I want to talk about hidden pictures. I filmed a reading vlog reading this, so I will link it right here or there, I don't know. If you haven't watched that video of me reading this is a thriller horror book. If you want to see me read this book, you can watch my reading vlog. These two books are by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and these were gifted to me by one of my friends. It was my first time experiencing Dostoevsky novel. I read this one first. I don't know what it's called in English. I will check it and I will write it on the screen. I like these editions, they're like very pretty. And I have this beautiful edition of Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare. I actually do not like this translation that much. These books right here, they are my Throne of Glass books. I don't have all of them, but this is the translated version, and these two are the first book. I did not continue on with the series. I read the first 3 books. If you think that I should continue on with that series, let me know down in the comments. I might continue reading them. I also really like this vintage edition of Lolita that I own. So pretty. 2 or 3 years ago, I went to the International Book Fair in Tehran, and in one of the stalls, when I was buying a book, they gifted me a little book, and it is called The Little Book of Embrace. It just has little illustrations of people hugging each other. Oh my god, I totally forgot this book exists. This is a very summarized version of Little Women. This was everything to me when I was a kid. I don't quite remember where I got it from, but as you can see, it's like very old. It's like only 40 pages, so I read this about 100 times. Right under that shelf, we have my textbooks, either from university or from the time where I used to teach English. And then we have my poetry collection. This is my poetry collection. You can see we have Lana Del Rey, we have Rupi Kaur, which were the first English poems that I ever read. And then we have Devotions by Mary Oliver, my favorite poetry collection ever. The Essential Rumi, which I still haven't been able to read. And then these 4 are my favorite Persian poet. His name is Afshin Yadullahi, and I have read most of his collections. And then we have Ahmed Shamlu. Okay, this book, I want to talk about it. Wait a second. I got this book from a second-handed bookstore, and what I love about second-handed bookstores is that it has little writings in it. And the person that used to own this actually wrote a little poem in the back. I love old books. And we have my Hafiz books, one Emily Dickinson book, and more Hafiz. Right over here, this is a picture of me and my best friend, Masa. And these 3 are the only historical fiction books that I own. The first one is All the Light We Cannot See, Daisy Jones and the Six, and The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I have been filming for 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like it, comment down below, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I hope you have a nice day or night, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!